And thanks for everybody coming in, making it in after the lunches. I know it's normally for me it's a tired time, so we'll try to be a little entertaining as we go through things, and hopefully it'll keep you awake for the most part. So this session is really going to run through some practical aspects on understanding social media marketing, really focusing on kind of what it is, why you would be interested in it. That'll be what I talk about for a little bit. And then the content, like what content types, what things you can actually promote, what things you can actually work with that will have a lot of success in social media and will allow you to get the kind of traction that you need. And then we're going to talk about, how you can actually create that process to be able to create that content, and how you can, in a light way of saying it, come up with the 4-hour work week for being able to accomplish those creatives in that process, which can typically be, we've found to be one of the key things that stops people from engaging in social media. After we have sessions, people will be like, well, that's great, I understand the concept, I understand why it's important, I understand what I should be doing, but I don't have a writing staff, I don't have a creative team, I don't have the availability to get this done. So we brought on a part to this session this year, especially about talking about how you can do that. So my name is Brent Satoris. I run viral marketing for Blue Glass, which is an all-service online marketing agency. And I've been doing social media literally since, probably about 4 years ago, when it took me 10, 15 votes to get to the front page of Dig. Started out in SEO. Found the value in it by being able to drive a lot of links, a lot of branding, a lot of really high quality traffic by reaching the influencers of the web, and the success that it brought me personally through some of the platforms that I had worked with. And so I stuck with it, really enjoy it, and think it's probably one of the purest ways to get the all-encompassing success that you're typically going out and trying to find through visibility online. Also joining us on the panel is Amy Vernon on the very end there. She's not on any of the guides, unfortunately, because I had one of the, Moo had to back out because of some visa issues, and so Amy was nice enough to join us, and it's a really great addition to the panel. Amy has a ton of journalistic background and content background, and she's one of the top social media marketers in the industry today. So she's going to be able to touch a lot on the content and what's working and how you can participate in a lot of these different sites with that content. And then Kevin Henrikson is going to be here as technical director at Henrikson Media. Amy, by the way, is just an independent consultant. I think just for the time being, she's made a couple changes that I think will be announced soon, that she might be going somewhere else and doing something bigger and better, but for the time being she's an independent consultant. And Henrikson here is a technical director for Henrikson Media and has a lot of experience in actually creating sites, grassroots, going out, finding the domain, creating the site, developing it, getting the content under, getting the success in social media, and doing it in a way that hasn't cost him an arm and a leg and allows him to do it across a lot of different sites. So this is kind of what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to go ahead and jump right into that and talk a lot about what social media is, why you should be doing it, where you can actually participate to have some value, and how you can participate in those individual places to have the best amount of success. So the first thing to really kind of clarify in this whole thing is what is social media marketing to me. I mean, I'm the one that's going to sit here and talk about it. I'm the one that's going to have a perspective that I portray. And so it's important to know what I think about social media marketing and what it is. Social media is an extremely broad term in this industry right now. If you have a blog, you're a social media marketer. If you're on Facebook, on Twitter, you're engaged in social media. If you use tools that interact with people like widgets and gadgets on your site, then you're in social media. If you're an aggregator, a social media marketer like I am in aggregation sites, then you're a social media marketer. So it gets a little hard to define what people are talking about. And so really when I talk about social, I see it really in two different ways. There's the sites that are aggregator sites like Dig, Reddit, StumbleUpon. These are sites where the focus is visibility amongst an audience who might not particularly know who you are. It's a new audience. It's traditional, what I consider to be marketing, reaching a new audience of people who don't know who you are, don't know what you sell. but might be interested in that. And then there's, MySpace, Facebook. Mostly these are networking, social profile sites, which have a great value, but they're kind of separate in the fact that you're more, reaching out to people who might already know who you are. It's more networking. It's more targeting an audience that already knows who you are and engaging with that group. So what I talk about within social media, when I use that term, I mean typically more towards the side of aggregation sites. I want to reach hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who have never heard of me and entice them to want to know about me more and the content that I'm creating. So why social media marketing? What's the value in it? Everybody hears about it, but there's been a lot of debates on, well, what's the value in it? What's the point in me getting involved in this? Yes, I created an account. Yes, I participated in it, but what did it do for me? First off, if you look at any of the numbers that are out there, there's I think at some point they were estimating some 250,000 new sites, new blogs created per day. A lot of companies are starting to create content sections on their site. They're realizing that you can't just have a static 5-page site and really expect to continue to compete with all of the social interaction on the web today and still be visible and still retain somebody. They can come in and make a purchase once, but what's bringing them back week 2, week 3, week 4? A lot of media sites, a lot of newspapers and magazines have started to create an online presence that they didn't have before. So what that basically means is there's a ton of people out there. There's a ton of systems that are being curtailed to performance based on traffic and what you can do with visibility. So there's a lot of people looking for content. And it's getting harder and harder to find quality content. There's so many people that are writing. There's so many things out there. And it's hard to identify what is the current trend, what is important to talk about. Well, the things that aggregation sites have really done for this audience of people, the influencers, the tastemakers, is that it's a 24-hour time period where the influencers or the savvy users of the web are submitting all content from the web into one system that allows the users to vote on that content. And based on their algorithm, they promote content to their popular section, which typically is their front page. And in that, they end up, and I'm jumping ahead because I'm talking a lot about how it works now, and that's going to be my next segment, but I'm not really good with slides. I just start talking and go, so bear with me. So when you get to that visibility, and you can get in front of those influencers on those sites, then you can get all that benefit from it. That's that massive exposure amongst the people that you want, because they look at that as an authority stamp. They say, look, my target audience, my group of people have already voted on this content. They've already said that this is important during this 24-hour time period, so I can, with faith, pick this article up and run with it and source you. And I might be somebody who's on the nightly news. I might be the editor at TBS. I might be at AOL. I might be anywhere across the web. We've seen stuff go so far in reach from having that visibility. Additionally, when you do that, you get a lot of inbound links, because obviously when these people are writing about you, they're professionals, and they're not going to steal your content. They're going to source your content. They're going to talk about your story, and they're going to give you credit for being the person who created that content, who created that story. And so you're going to get a lot of natural inbound links that are deep-seated into your sites, which will allow you to have more authority, allow you to rank better, allow you to, in general, show up in more places. You're going to, through the process of engaging in social media, you now have to rethink how you're creating your content. Are you just throwing up some crap that you had somebody write that's 300 words and it really doesn't have a whole lot of value? Is it pretty good, but it's really just kind of average? You have to make an effort to start creating things that are worthy of having an influencer take it and run with it, worthy of a high-level site to link back to you. And in that process, you learn how to create better content. You learn how to prepare and deliver better materials for people. And in general, the quality of your site and the engagement that people have with your site improves and gets better, and people come back. Branding, as you continue to do all this, as you get these links and you start showing up in the search results, now you're branding. When somebody comes and they search on this topic and they see you in the top of the page, they see you 5 or 6 times, an influencer sees your site as the source of some story, then you've been branded, and that continues to go up and it becomes valuable to you. And obviously this visibility relates in traffic, not just the traffic from a social community, but also from where they're linking to you across these different networks. They're now sending you their traffic. They're sending their quantified or their very specific traffic that they have that can be very targeted toward what your topic is about. And that's where conversions can start to come in. Where when you're talking about a specific thing, like you might do an article about the 7 rarest breeds of dogs, And that might be something that's really interesting. It gets picked up, and now pets.com decides to write about it, and they send 100,000 visitors that are very, very targeted spending audience that's coming to your site that might be about dog toys or something. And now you have an audience that cares a lot more. And when you get the links from those sites and with those anchor text and with that targeting, now you're showing up for random searches in the search results that are very targeted to what you're selling. And all of this equates to a lot more conversions. So it's really a holistic approach. It's really a beautiful thing in the fact that you are now going back to, I want to create content in a way that people will love it and prepare it in a way that it gets the visibility it needs so that the people take it and run with it. And now I get the traffic that I want and I get the sales that I want. And it's fast tracking, because typically when you do that, it can take years. And this is a way of doing it overnight, realistically, overnight sometimes. So how they work, the basic idea, you get to the top of a site like dig.com, you end up getting in front of a lot of these editors. People will then resubmit it. I think Ashton Kutcher, over 5 million followers on Twitter right now, gets a lot of his content from dig.com, and will end up turning around and resubmitting it, pushing it out, sending it out to their users. All of that ends up resulting in a lot of visibility and a lot of traffic and a lot of conversions and a lot of success. So where should you be participating? Where can you go out today and say, I'm sold, I've got this really cool content, now I want to go out and I want to promote it, I want to get involved, I want to make an account, I want to engage in this? The first thing you need to realize is you need to engage where you're able to and where you have the time. A site like Dig is like, the Google of search engines. It's like that for social. It's the top of the echelon. It's right up there. But it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. It takes, it can be a full-time job to make those, associations and that network, and to participate and find the sources of content and engage in this community in a way that now you are a respected user. And when you promote something that you want to promote, in the mix of all of that, it's respected and received in a good way. Something like Stumble Upon, where it's very, very tag-orientated, you're more specifically reaching an individual audience within there, you could spend an hour a day and probably have some pretty decent success over time. So you need to go where you actually have the ability and you have the time to participate. You also need to look at what has a value. It's one thing to go out and make an account and participate in it and to even hit the front page or any of that, but if it really doesn't have a value for you as a business, then what's the point, right? So you need to make sure before you engage in any of this, you really look at whether that community is going to engage in your content. And you can do that through searching through the site, seeing if they have categories that relate to what you do, and saying, does my content about automobiles really have a place in this green-orientated site? Probably not, right? I mean, unless you're talking about green-orientated cars, but the point is make sure that you find some connection that makes sense. And then lastly, you always want to participate in niche sites. People will say, well, I want to focus only on these big sites. Look, if you have a product about pets and there's a social media site for pets, it's a win-win. You always want to participate in things that are directly associated to your niche like that. Dig. Particularly if you are familiar with Dig at all or social sites like this, Dig is on the verge of releasing a new version 4, and if you have questions about that, I mean, me and Amy are both extremely knowledgeable on that. We're both alpha testers. I've worked with the guys at Dig for many, many years and know a lot of them personally, and so I have access to a lot of that information, would be happy to kind of get into that. I'm not going to get too much into the changes on that right now, but I will tell you some tips that I would tell you if you're going to participate right now. The changes are not in effect, and there's things that you can do where after the change, the new version comes, you can get value out of what you do now. And a big part of that is getting mutual friends. It's all about who follows you very seriously in the new version. So going out right now, identifying people, networking a little bit, and getting more mutual friends on the site is going to pay huge dividends in a couple weeks when they release the new version. It doesn't matter how many you get, it's going to be viable because it's a lot harder to do with the new version. Twitter and Facebook. This is a tip for Dig, but this is really a tip for anyone. Social is a continuously compounding system. What I mean by that is, like, every new site, they don't make you start over anymore. They say, look, do you have a MySpace account? Well, import your stuff. Do you have a Facebook account? Well, grab your friends. Do you have a Twitter account? Well, let's pull all of those people in. How can we pull what you already have to make it seamless for you to join our community? And in doing that, every platform that you have, every network that you've built in these platforms helps your next platform, your next network grow faster down the road. So always, you might look at this and say, I don't care about Twitter, it's not important. Twitter is important because everybody else cares about it, even if you don't. And so participating in it allows you to have a connection point later in something totally unrelated. So definitely get in and make your Twitter accounts and your Facebook accounts. In the new dig, these are integrated and they become a part of it, and there's hints at a lot of actions that are going to be taken on these third-party sites that are going to influence the success that you have on dig. So by having these accounts, it improves your chance to have success, it improves your chance to grow your network bigger. Titles. On dig, when you start getting into dig and stuff, when you start submitting content, the biggest thing is the title. There's like literally hundreds and hundreds of articles being submitted every hour, every minute on dig, and they all just filter away and disappear. And when somebody's looking at a page, the title, and this is pretty much marketing 101, your title will grab the attention away from things that aren't as, don't have as strong as a hook. So definitely look at titles. One other tip I would definitely give you about dig in general, especially for the new dig, is that don't be IM dependent. Like a lot of people, they think that, I can go in and I can sign up and I can get 300 friends on IM and I can just game the system. It's never really a good idea for you to go into any type of marketing and social media with the intent, I want to game this. It's very short-lived, it's very short-term. So IMs and having a reliance on being able to get a bunch of votes from your network is not something that I think that you're going to be able to do as effectively, and it's not something I think is something you should be focusing your time on. So don't get yourself dependent on IMing somebody and saying vote for this. Get dependent on having a process that's high quality and engages the users to want to follow you naturally. And be natural. That's the biggest thing you can do in dig and in a lot of social sites is really look at the site before you engage. Don't go sign up tonight and start throwing your stuff in there. Look at what people submit. Do people submit all the same site? Are they representing themselves or are they picking an avatar? What are they doing within these sites to actually promote and do well? Stumble Upon. Stumble Upon is really cool because it's all tag based. So like I was saying before, dig is like all content's looked at by everybody. So somebody who hates automobiles is still looking at your automobiles content. So it kind of makes it a little harder to necessarily have overall success without having a really good network and without having a lot of presence. But Stumble Upon is really focused on tags. So when you sign up for Stumble Upon, a user, anybody does, you select a list of tags that you're interested in. And they're going to show you content based on what tags you have subscribed to. So when you're putting content in, you want to make sure that you're picking the right tags so that the audience that is going to view your content is going to be interested in it. And the way that you can do this, just like AdWords allows you to go in and look at all the keywords beforehand, Stumble Upon has a paid system. And if you go through a campaign in their paid system, they will actually show you all their categories and the thousands of people that are subscribed to each one of those categories. So you can go in and find out, here's my category tree, here's this category, but this category is related and it has 3 times as many subscribers. On Stumble Upon, everybody only sees a page one time. So the subscriber amount matters. If you're sending it out to a group that has 10,000 subscribers, the max visibility is 10,000. If they have 100,000 subscribers, the max visibility is 100,000. So obviously you want bigger categories. However, you don't want to go off category. If your thing's about automobile, you don't want to put it in pets because you're going to be showing to a lot of people who don't care about your content. They're going to downvote it and it's going to get pulled. Participate and network within your category. So pick a category for your account. Pick something that is 2 or 3 main things and stick to that. Make sure the content you share is from there. Make sure what you stumble is from that category and reach out to other people that are in that same category. And then last thing is sharing method. Make sure that you are not only sharing your own content, but you're also sharing other things from other sites. That applies to all social sites. You should be sharing more than just one site. Fark. Fark's a really cool one. Fark is a admin-selected content site where they actually have an admin group that will select what content goes to their front page. However, Fark is growing extremely fast, and it's continued to have great success. And we're starting to see more traffic from Fark than we are from dig. They're getting it's something that you absolutely should be participating in if you have anything that's related with news. They're typically a news-oriented site. So if you are writing about news about your industry on a blog, or if you are a news producer, or anything that you can do to have a newsworthy story will allow you an opportunity to be in FARC. The important thing is titles are everything. Titles, titles, titles. I mean, it's across the board, but in FARC, it's everything. They don't care about where the story comes from. They're not concerned about whether it's a blog or a main site or anything like that. They are drawn almost always by titles, and that's what the admin has to come up with in order to promote it to the front page. And so, as somebody who's going through and picking content, if you're able to create a title that matches what they would like already, they're more apt to pick yours as a story that they promote. So you can literally just go through the start and start reading what other people have been saying and how they do it. And puns and sensational things work really, really well in FARC. It's a humor-based news site. So knowing that, go into it with titles that are very acceptable to that environment that you already know that the admins have selected because they promoted it, and you can have a lot of success in FARC. So that's the end of my presentation. I just wanted to cover, what it was and a couple sites that you could get into, and then I'm going to let Amy come up now and talk to really a lot more about what the content you can do and how it will succeed in the different sites. So thank you.
Hi. Just by way of some background, I spent 20 years in a daily newspaper newsroom of varying sizes all over the country, and was talking with the public every day and trying to balance that. What does the public want versus what do they need, and what do we need to get out there? So I have a pretty good sense of, even before social media, of what worked, and I actually got into social media because I was just looking for ways to find more readers for our newspaper website and our blogs online, and just sort of experimented. And then in the great newspaper culling of 2008, turned around the next day and got my first contract as a social media consultant. So first of all, there is life after newspapers, and second of all, it shows I have a pretty good idea of what, at least what people are interested in looking at. What?
Spacebar, I think.
Spacebar? Okay. I have a Mac, so. First thing is lists always do well. People love lists. It's the USA Today attention span, where everything was turned into graphics. A list is basically the text-based version of a graphic. But, top 10 is so yesterday. Now, the 13 oddest, whatever, the top 4 awkward moments, I mean, the odder the number you choose, almost the better. And it's good to sort of poke fun. And another way of doing a list is an evolution timeline sort of thing. I have a few examples here. Here's 4 awkward moments in Facebook likes. You can see this got 9,100 digs, which translates into, I don't even know, it could have been 30, 40, 50, even 60,000 page views that came through from dig. And I mean, that's 4. This one, the evolution of logos, it was a post, and all it did was it showed logos of different companies and how those logos evolved over years. And it was a whole bunch of different companies. The site had to do with advertising, so it fit in with their topic. And people love seeing how things change over time. This one is a movie website. They did their top 13 horror comedies. And again, that odd number, it sticks in people's mind more. There's 8 million top 10 sites out there now. And so anything you can do that sort of makes that number jump out differently just catches people's attention. Another way to go is memes, but you really have to know your meme. And for anyone who's not familiar, basically it's whatever the latest thing is on the internet that everybody's obsessing about. A couple of weeks ago, it was the double rainbow. Does everybody know what I'm talking about with the double rainbow across the sky? I mean, there were songs made up about it. There were spoofs. They're still out there. And the idea is not to take yourself too seriously, to make fun of yourself within the context of whatever the latest meme is. But, of course, not waiting too long. And the best even is a meme mashup, which I'll show you in a second. This one is Why the Internet Loves Bacon. Bacon is one of the ultimate memes. I actually own baconqueen.com, which is the only bacon news aggregator on the internet. Then auto-tune is a very popular meme. If you've heard of the Gregory brothers, they started with auto-tune the news, which has become very popular. So then they took the Double Rainbow guys video and they auto-tuned it. And again, that's one of those things where people just went crazy because it took two of their favorite memes and put it into one. So if there's anything that you can do that takes more than one thing out there, people just, anything that is making people laugh, if you can double that, you're basically guaranteed traffic. You just have to do it well. Also, you want to appeal to nostalgia. I call it everything not so old is new again. And to do that, you have to know your audience. If your audience is the people you're targeting tend to be Gen Xers, well, you're going to want to go maybe with the Muppets, because they all grew up watching the Muppets, and they all saw the Muppet movie in the movie theater. I did. For maybe millennials, you don't want to go all the way back to the 80s, because that's old now, and you want to just go back to the 1990s. I'm already seeing lists of like the top 10 films of the aughts, and that happens at the end of any decade, but we're still seeing lists like that. It's knowing what your audience is and targeting that nostalgia toward them. And you could see this top films of the 90s got 305,000 page views just from StumbleUpon, and that's ones that were measured through StumbleUpon. Who knows how many more they got because people saw that and then tweeted it out, posted it on Dig, posted it on their blog, etc. You can also go in the how-to or instructional direction. You really want to keep it simple. You don't want to do something really complex like how to build a gaming system on a Linux computer for $1,000. You want to really keep things very simple. Obviously, if you have an audience that's looking for that, go for it. But you want to make sure you illustrate it, and you want to make sure, again, that it's things that people want to know, people in your niche, in your target audience, that they want to know. This site, Digital Photography School, how to photograph children. That's completely in the niche of the site, and it's something that any parent wants to be able to take pictures of their kids that look the best. So if you're looking at people who are on a photography blog, and maybe they're not even parents, maybe they are getting started as photographers and they want better tips on how to photograph children. Who doesn't want to know how to pay off $14,000 in debt in 20 months? Again, it's something that people want to know. It's on Consumerist, which is a consumer site, so you have a lot of people there who perhaps are in debt or trying to stay out of debt. So they're going to this site. It fits in perfectly with what their audience is. Current events. If you're not AP or Reuters, you're not going to be first with the actual news of the event, but you can play off it. And if it's something that's coming up, the example I'm going to show you in a second is the healthcare. It was obvious it was either going to pass or it wasn't. And as time got closer, it was obvious it was going to pass. So what this site that I'll show you did, they created content that was about the history of how we got to this point. They knew they weren't going to be first or get more votes than a major news site on the healthcare actually passing, but they were prepared so that as soon as it did pass, they got almost 11,000 digs, which that's probably, I don't know, 100,000 page views at least, just from Dig. And all the incoming links they got from that, I mean, 10,000, very few posts on Dig get over 10,000 digs. So this really hit, but they were smart. They were paying attention to current events. They were completely prepared, and when it happened, they got it out there. And because theirs was a different take on the news, but it was in their niche. News Junkie Post tends to be a liberal-leaning website, so it was good for their audience, and posted in political news, and there they go. They got a huge hit on their website that day because they were prepared and they were paying attention to what was going on. Like I said, don't try to out-news the news sources because you're not going to be able to. But if you're paying attention, you can play off the news that is in your niche and benefit from that. The infographic is very popular right now. It's sort of the bacon of content, if you will. What you want to do is you want to source it because people like to see down at the bottom of the graphic that, oh, okay, they got this data from the census or from this website or from the New York Times or wherever. They see it, it gives it more legitimacy if they see where you got all that data. Because I could just go on the computer right now and create a graphic and throw all sorts of numbers on there and it wouldn't mean anything. But if you have sources on there, it gives it more legitimacy. And also very important is to allow others to embed the graphic on their site, not just link to it. And importantly, if you're giving them an embed code, you're getting a link back through that embed code, whereas if they just took a picture of it, even if they said where they got it from, maybe they link to you, maybe they don't. If you give them an embed code, you're basically making it easy where all they do is copy this and paste it into their HTML, and you automatically are getting a link back. And if you're giving them an embed code, they're far more likely to just use that than to screenshot it or right-click and save and then post it on their site, because you're just making it much easier for them. So yes, they're using the content on their site, but you're getting a link back from that, which is always good. Infographic can be on anything. This one that I took a shot of with the visual guide to deflation got almost 1,500 digs. Right now, Dig is very happy with infographics. There's infographics in every category, and people love them because, again, it's sort of the USA Today attention span where it's just like, ooh, look, pretty graphic and numbers, and they sort of stare at it, and then they press Dig. Strange or offbeat is always good. It sort of works anywhere and everywhere. Hyperbole is always welcome. You want the strangest, the happiest, the biggest, the smallest. That's just sort of an evergreen, really, for anything. You can do that in your lists where it's the 10 best or the 10 worst. You saw earlier it was the 4 lamest moments in Facebook likes. People always like to see the best or the worst in anything, so those kinds of things always work well. The main thing is to know what your goals are, who your audience is, who you want your audience to be, choosing the right topic or format for your readers, and don't insult them. You can poke fun at yourself, but don't make fun of them. If in poking fun at yourself, you're poking fun at them, that's different, because then it's just sort of like, oh, look at us, we're all geeky, we all love our pet toys, but not like, you don't want to turn it out on them and be like, wow, you people are really lame. And your keywords in the title and in your content, you want to know what do you want to rank for and what would you not mind ranking for, because sometimes maybe you want to rank for a topic that's like really just out there, just so popular, like TV, but maybe TV shows or TV sitcoms, something else that's a little more reachable. Maybe you want to aim for that instead because you're more likely to rank higher, so your time is better spent on that. So you just have all those things in mind as you're creating the content and seeding it out there, because all of this, especially on sites like Dig and Stumble Upon, is the SEO, just in the Dig submission alone, the SEO is very strong, so that can help bring you up in the search rankings. The sites all have different audiences and different traffic. Stumble Upon can keep coming back to you over months. 6 months later, you might suddenly get 500 page views in a day from something that went out there and you had forgotten about. Dig, it's basically, if it hits the front page, then once it hits the front page, and then from Dig itself, after like 2 days, there's literally nothing at all. I mean, the next day there's very little, but 2 days later, you won't even see another referral from Dig unless there's something new on there. Reddit is another Dig-type site. It has smaller traffic, but its community is very, very engaged on the site, and they're very supportive of each other. So, again, they all have different audiences, and as Brent said, you really want to make sure that you're looking at these sites and seeing which suits your goals the best. And last of all, a giraffe in a pink suit with a top hat. Be pithy, be funny, be smart. And that goes for not only what the content is, but how you approach it and how you get it out there. Just, you don't want to create some great content and then submit it in a bad category or put it on a site that really doesn't make sense for it. You want to make sure that you're matching up what you're writing to what your goals are and getting it out there in the most appropriate way. And that's me.
Thanks, Amy. One thing I would like to also add to all of that is that a lot of times people feel like if you don't have something that's extremely sexy, then you can't participate in social. And I really have yet to find anything that we haven't been able to find a way for it to have a lot of success in social and to have content around that. Anything from tax codes to selling little screws to bolts and toilets. I mean, there's always something funny out there, and there's always an angle, and a lot of times in these social sites we tend to focus on extreme content because that's what's the exception to the rule, but they're all social news aggregation sites. A simple statistical story can go a long way in these sites, and so you don't always have to go crazy. You can take all of these principles and apply them very strongly to good stories like the one about the health reform and stuff like that can really have a strong value. So last up is going to be Kevin, and he's going to talk about how you can do all of this and accomplish it without like breaking the bank and without going through an entire nightmare and a headache. So Kevin, thanks. Oh, sorry.
Alert. Mouse is stuck. Ambient light sensor.
We may be having technical difficulties.
It's like it's stuck.
As soon as you
Yeah, it's like there's some key stuck.
I didn't push any keys. Just to reboot it, maybe?
Is it something on there?
All right, we're going to do this the fun way. Sorry, we're going to hold up just a second and see if we can't get this to work. For whatever reason, it seems to be recognizing a button depressed. So we'll do a hard reboot. Hopefully there's not a password.
Or it's going to do Windows Update.
You got it. Just don't break it again.
Yeah, see if I can remember all my slides. I do it by memory.
It's Microsoft. It takes a while.
Want to do questions? Anybody have any questions while we're waiting for it to reboot? Not yet.
Like a lot of people will sometimes ask, like, what kind of success can you see from a lot of these campaigns, and you're not going to see the same type of success on every campaign, but a lot of times what we have seen, is that you'll typically have three levels. You'll have I went popular, but it was at 3 o'clock in the morning, or it was right before they announced that, Obama's, resigning, or something that's like really going to steal the light from any other story out there. And you don't typically get as much results out of that. You might get a couple links, you might get 1,000 visits or something like that. There's the mid-level where you get anywhere from 10 to 30,000 visits, maybe a couple hundred links, a couple, residual traffic, maybe another 20,000 from somebody else, and overall you'll see like 50,000 and maybe a couple hundred links. The real knockout of the parks, which we typically don't have all the time, but they do come from time to time, we've seen campaigns that have literally had over 500,000 to 1 million visits within a 48-hour time period. We've seen over 10,000 links where we've had literally 20 or 30 PR8s, a couple hundred PR7s, a couple hundred PR6s, and a couple thousand PR5s and lower. So when we talk about quantifying the value of an out-of-the-park hit, I mean, if you take the basic old-school link buying, numbers, it's $250,000 to $300,000 worth of links and visibility and traffic. And this stuff really does wonders. I mean, when you look at what people are going into for, how this works in a larger picture of how it affects your rankings and stuff, this is one of the only things that we've seen Google come out and say, yeah, you should totally do this for link building.
Can you give an example of something that got 500,000?
Sure, absolutely. So we did, this story got literally 500,000. We were working with a company, it was very sports related, and we didn't use Dig at all because they, before us, they had hired some other company who tried to basically spam it and got themselves in trouble and banned. So we went with just StumbleUpon and StumbleUpon alone. But what we did is they took all the pictures that they could find where it was a sports event where the picture had been taken in a time that it looked almost like it was from a porno. So you have like somebody who's like fallen into another guy and it looks like he's from behind or something. Anything that looked sexual in nature but was a legitimate sports photo. And they came up with the term sporno. And they said the 20 best photos in Sporno history. And they did an article on this. And it's, the cool thing about this example is the fact that it didn't go popular really anywhere. It just was on StumbleUpon. It didn't get like major exposure. But it got picked up on by so many sports blogs. Like literally their backlink was like all PR6, PR5 and 6, but they were all sports related sites. And they had like, I think they got 850 pretty solid links out of it, and over a time period of about a week and a half from the other blogs and stuff as well, had close to 500,000 visits.
All right, cool. So we're back. No worries. So yeah, so I'm kind of the reverse of Amy. So I'm a programmer by nature. So I'm lazy. And so I didn't want to write content and like figure out what people did. So I tried to find a way, and we have hundreds of sites. And so I tried to find a way, how do we create all this content that will do well in social, but doesn't cost a lot of money and then doesn't take any of my time. So I did the background thing. So I'm going to talk about kind of before outsourcing and after, some of the tools we use, what we call the assembly line, which is kind of how we build the content, and then some tips and tricks for that. So before outsourcing, basically content was a big part of our kind of daily costs or overhead, I would say. And a lot of that's people costs because you're paying, expensive writers, or you're having to spend your own time on it and your time's expensive. And the company really couldn't scale. So we were either not doing enough content for all the various sites, or we were just writing lame content, or just not doing it. And then it was a single point of failure because there was really only a couple of us, and if one of us was out for a week, then no content got created, so no sites, nothing got published. So after outsourcing, now it's basically a third of that. It's a lot smaller. If we're gone, the system keeps running, the assembly line keeps turning, and there's like 50-some remote workers that do all this work. And whether we're there or not, we're sleeping, awake, content's being created. As of right now, people are generating content and going for it. So the whole 4-hour work week kind of approach, you kind of, why do you do this? So the first thing is your time has value. It's like, it's, am I doing something that I could do myself? Sure. Could I try to write content or find people to do it? I could. But my time has value, and so I'd rather, work on the higher value tasks. people get afraid of remote workers, like they're going to do something wrong. And so the key there is just start small and, take some risks and go ahead and fail. It's going to be cheap. It's going to cost you, you'll see, literally pennies or dollars to do a few tests. And if it doesn't work, then try it a little different way and you can, iterate from there. And other people say, only I can do this task. And there is some truth to certain tasks are harder and you'll have to hire more expensive people to do those. So, Brent or Amy's tasks would be harder to outsource what they're trying to do, but some of the pieces that allow them to scale or would allow them to scale could be outsourced. So where do we get to outsource people? Where do we find these remote workers and what are the tools we use? So Odesk is kind of the main one and that's the one I'll talk about the most, but has everybody heard of Odesk? Anybody not heard of it? Some heard of it? Okay, some people have. So Elance, Virtual Employee, Guru, there's a bunch of these kind of just hire, freelancer type sites out there. There's a few things that are specific to Odesk that are unique, or at least was when Odesk came out, and they've done a really good job iterating on that. And it's around monitoring and being able to track the employees, which helps because you obviously never meet them, you never see them, and that type of thing. A lot of this content that we create needs to be local, or it needs to be with a certain skill set. You just can't hire a random person from a third world country to write political news or have the right angle of something. So depending on the topic you're covering, or we were working with a medical device company and you obviously had to have some technical skill about what you're writing about. So we use Craigslist, and there's a lot of other kind of classified type sites where you can focus on a very tight niche. We have a bunch of music sites that we need people to go to concerts. And so for that type of outsourcing job, we go and post on Craigslist or post on local school newspapers are a great way to pick up these people because college students love to work for free. And you just give them credit, or the credit that they did that, or they'll do it for the tickets because our sites get invited to a lot of events, and so we can't attend. But if I put it on a school newspaper, hey, do you want to go to the Big Boy concert in Miami? There you go. You get a whole line of people that are basically willing to almost pay you to go because you're going to give them a press pass to go, and all they have to do is give me the pictures and then give it to the content team, and they actually write the content. So they don't even have to be people that are writers. It's just, you're basically using them for kind of on the street news gatherers. We've done a bunch of international stuff this way, getting really weird exotic videos and pictures from whether it's disasters or from just some local event that you'd never be able to cover and the normal media is not going to send somebody there. We can do it with remote workers and pay somebody $1 to go down to local protest or something and take pictures and just send them back to us. And they're more exclusive than, you can go to Twitter and try to scrape something from an event, but it's a lot easier to have your own control of the source and be able to get something that, have more control and have different angles and things of that nature. Collaboration, so we use a bunch of different things, and Google Docs is probably the biggest. Skype a little bit when we have to talk to people, but generally we don't want to IM or talk to people at all. We want to basically do it all through the system and get them to work with each other, because if you have to intervene, then it's not as scalable than if they can work with each other. So putting everything in Google Docs allows you to kind of step away from that process, and that helps allow you to not only keep track of everything, see who's working and see when they're working, but also what they've done. So Odesk is basically hundreds of thousands of remote workers, and it's a tool set that allows you to hire, post jobs, and more importantly, manage what they do. So Odesk basically allows you to go into their work history. It's kind of like an online resume of what they've done, shows ratings from other past employers, and the key feature that we love is this snapshot of their desktop. So basically every 10 minutes at some random interval, it takes a picture of what's on their desktop, and you can see there's little pictures there, and it not only does that, but it tracks how many mouse movements and how many keyboard entries were happened in that same 10-minute period. So you can see what they did, and you can do this on your employees at work too if you really wanted to, but it works great for remote workers when you've never met them. So it's pretty invasive, I guess, if people are like, oh, that's crazy, you're watching what people do. And it's like, well, you're paying them to work for you and you've never met them. How do you control that? So then they handle all the tax paperwork, being able to allow people to get paid in a million different formats. So depending on where the workers are, you don't have to worry about paying them. You just slide your Amex card, and once a week they take a bill for all the hours that are worked. And then once we get to a more advanced stage, we actually don't even look at these. We've hired other outsourcers to look at the pictures and look for IM, look for people that are listening to music or doing anything that's not like they're changing their playlist. Like, why was your playlist up for 5 of the 10-minute times? They're like, oh, I was looking for a new song. I'm like, the whole hour? Like, it's amazing, like, how many dog eat your homework type stories. I mean, we've seen the craziest kernel panic, this got washed away, my chair. I mean, just amazing excuses that people come up with of why something random came up on their screenshot. But at least it's there. And then it's really easy for them to just say delete, and they can actually go and review their own, and they just delete it, and the screenshot goes away, and so does the time that they build. So it's perfect. So if they want to hide something from you, it's great. You don't have to pay them for it. So some other tips kind of on hiring. So you can really use it for anything that's, kind of, I would say, menial tasks, but we've hired it for much more advanced things. But the great way to get started is kind of personal assistant type tasks, writers and researchers, and then kind of work up there for editors and more higher level graphic designers. We generally try to focus on hiring individuals versus agencies. There's a lot of groups that are agencies that represent themselves on Odesk. But what we've found is not only is the agency taking a cut, so the worker's not getting as much as, they're losing more of the value of what you're paying. They're more likely to get switched off to another task, or their rate's going to go up a lot quicker, because the agency will go, oh, this person's doing good, they worked with you for a couple months, and the agency will either try to raise their rate, or that person will leave and go do something else. Where an individual, you kind of build a little more of a personal rapport with them, because they're kind of more tied to your company and not as easy to get shifted off to another task as quickly. We like to do what we call the audition for these long-term jobs, so we'll hire 2, 3, 4, 5 times what we need, and then just basically pay them to work for a week or a couple hours just to test them, see how they work, and then just continue to recycle them, kind of like the Cisco model of salespeople, right? Every quarter they just cut the bottom 10% and then just keep bringing in new people, so there's always a constant flow of new people, so you're continuously to hire and fire every month, every week. You're just constantly trying to improve the base of your people. Sure.
You must spend 1,000 hours retraining.
No, so the question was, you must spend thousands of hours retraining people, and initially we did because we weren't smart about it, but now we have a Google Doc to do everything, literally from how to read your email, how to open a Google Doc. We have a help guide that's exactly how we want them to do it. You must format your titles here. You must never IM us. You must only email us with exact subjects this way, because people don't want to use email. They'll send you an email with no subject. And you're like, I want you to put the job title, the code, and you basically spell it all out, and you give them a couple bucks for the first hour to learn how to do it, and then they just follow the rules. And if as they break them, you continue to add your help guides and your docs to kind of focus them down that path. We prefer to give bonuses over raises, so we do reviews. Or we have outsourced people that do reviews of the employees. They rate how well the content was, how well they did their task, how consistent they were. You'll have people that'll work 40 hours for 1 week and then disappear for a month, right? And so that we'll mark against them that, and then that they won't get a bonus or that quarter or that review period. So how much? People are so what can you actually get? And it's surprisingly cheap. And I put $1 to $2 but we have tons of people that are working for less than $1, 20, 30 cents, 50 cents, 80 cents for an hour in these crazy places. And you're like, well, how do people do this? And it's a lot of them are they don't have a job, they can't get a job, or they are doing something, they're sitting in a computer lab, and rather than playing games, they don't get paid for it. Now they can go and make $1 an hour, basically hanging out in the computer lab or hanging out in some internet cafe. And they'll do that. And then as you kind of walk up the task levels, the wages kind of drift with that. And so writers get a little more, editors get a little more. And again, this is all variable, and you'll sometimes find a single person that'll move through the levels. A lot of times you'll just find a researcher. We have a couple guys now that all they do is review pictures all day. So they just go and build huge lists of just pictures. And so they get $1 an hour, and the guy's like, I love it. He sends me, oh man, I'm so happy, it's the best job I've ever had. And he literally all day he just goes and looks for pictures, and we give him different topics, and he'll just go and find pictures on those topics. And, it's pretty good. And he has to format, he delivers a source with the link back to the Flickr page or wherever he found it, so that we can pull that into an article or pull that into something for later. So cool. So basically, how do you create the assembly line? And I'll walk through this specifically for an article or a link bait article, which is what we do the most of. So Amy talked about top 10 lists, top 1,000 lists. Well, we do crazy ones like top 1,200 reasons of this, top 80,000 reasons. We can just come up with long lists. 80,000 is probably a big one, but when you can blow it out by just basically replicating the same thing, having somebody just continue to research a topic for a long time, and come up with all kinds of great ideas. So you basically take what used to be like a high-end writer that was writing link bait that we used to pay around $25 for those type of articles, and now we've broken it down to, we'll get to the point, but it's basically $10. And it's on a much more scalable system. So these are articles that would normally take several hours of a pretty high-end writer to go and do the research, find the content, create the great title, and then come up with it. So the researcher will start out with just come up with a bunch of ideas. So they'll say, give me 50 ideas for purple widgets, and then they'll come up with all their ideas. You give those to an editor, and they select the ones, and they go, okay, go back and research these ones. So the researcher actually comes up with their own topics, and they come up with a huge list, and then you cut it down and take just the best 10% of that. So then you hire a person for each task. So researcher, writer, editor, get it. Then you have them all through Google Docs, put the research in a Google Doc, hand it off to the writer. then the writer creates the article, and then finally the editor goes back to Google Docs and actually reviews it. And then you create this loop where they all talk to each other. So you set up alerts so that when the researcher's done, they send a note to the writer's done, they send a note to the editor, and the editor finally publishes it on the site or schedules it for production, depending on the type of site it is. And then at that point, you can, if you want, step away. What we've done is just hired another layer of management to, again, on Odesk, to review their work logs, to do the reviews, to do the bonuses, and basically the same thing. Build out very nice instructional sheets of what you're looking for, exactly how to review people, and then they're able to continue to train and execute that on your behalf. And you can go and automate other tasks or work on other parts of your business. So kind of here is a before and after. A traditional writer could do about 4 articles a week. These are, again, just some guy we find off Craigslist type of thing, or some person off Craigslist. $25 an article, so for your $100 you get 4 articles a week, and again, assuming that they're there and they don't go find another job. And then now with kind of the new model, we've been able to get basically 8 to 10 articles a week, so a little more than double that, and basically 2 hours of research at $1 an hour to research whatever that topic is. An hour for the writer to form that into an article, link to all the source, make it clean. We use WordPress for everything, so they create it in WordPress format and HTML links and all that good stuff. And then the editors, $7 an hour, and they basically spend a half hour just formatting it, and they'll know, is it going for dig or is it going for what kind of site, and they'll try to build the right kind of formatting and the right look and feel to make it match the audience that they're going for, or to match the site they're going for. And then the beautiful thing is you can continue to build out more researchers. So research is getting behind, or I need more writers because this particular task is getting behind. You can scale them up independently of each other. So you may have too many things queuing up for the editors, and you'll see that then the manager will just come in and add an editor or add a few editors. So you're in this constant kind of readapting to the workflow and readapting to the work. And so that's like kind of one of the articles. We can do the same thing for infographics. We do the same thing for basically any kind of like article that you would see on these social sites that requires research. That's not like and we can do it for breaking news if we wanted to, but most of it's around things that have a lot of data with them. And those are the kind of things that today do pretty well because people are interested to see a huge infographic or a huge list of items that are intriguing and somehow laid out in some smart way that they wouldn't have been able to go and do that work and lay it out themselves. So if you don't want to do all this and set this system up, is there alternatives? So Brent's company has something that's in kind of private beta now called CopyPress that basically is more or less a mirror of this system that has behind them a bunch of US writers that then will create content of various classes, so they can do infographics all the way down to the basic like SEO copy. Demand Media and Associated Content are they got bought by Yahoo, the latter one, but both of them are much bigger companies and probably have a lot larger budget to work with them, but same idea. You can just order tons of content from them and feed that right into your site and basically use it as a way to help you generate large amounts of content for a big network of sites. So that's it.
Thanks, Kevin. Again, I want to say thanks to everybody on the panel for joining me, and I hope that you guys were able to take something away from this. Unfortunately, because of our reboot and a little conversation here or there, we I think ran right to the end of the time. So I don't think we have a whole lot of time for Q&A or anything like that. However, we're all going to be hanging out afterwards. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Just come up and talk to me. Thanks.